I'm Louise Blaine and you are watching Assassin's Central. I'm here in the British Museum with Game Director of Assassin's Creed Origins, Ashraf Ismail.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about the combat and all the new weapons that we can play with in Assassin's Creed Origins.
Okay.
I played for 4 hours, I played with multiple different things, and for the first time I got really attached to my weaponry. I found some really hideous 2 knives that I then had some close combat with. Was that something you wanted people to do, to really find their own favourite ways to play?
Yeah, the combat system, it is something new for us, and we tried to put a lot of love and effort into it. What we wanted was that each weapon type could give a different style of play, and that we were sure that each player would find, 2 or 3 types that they love, some that they might not because it's not their style, and that's totally okay. And the idea is, through the rarity system, through the gear system, the different attributes and properties of weapons, that you can still customize the way you fight, the way you play the combat system, but still playing the way with the type of weapon that you enjoy. I love the dual swords. I absolutely love them, and you'll see that when you get into some really unique versions of them, where they can do, for example, poison damage, or you can light them on fire. You can get some really fun moments of combat. And hopefully that if there's a weapon you don't like, maybe you'll find a version that has a certain property or attribute that will make you test it, and maybe you'll find a love for it. I hope for that.
So is it you find the certain type of weapon, and depending on the one you get, it will have these specific attributes? You don't add them to them, they come with, you find them in the chest and they have that particular attribute?
Effectively, the weapons come in various rarities. And then from that point, based on the rarities and the types of weapons, there's hundreds and hundreds of weapons. So yes, you find them based on the rarity. The more rare they are, the more properties they will have. And at some point, the properties really drastically change the use of them. But yes, these are things you find in the world. If you have a weapon that you really like, and it's a lower level, you can go to a blacksmith, and by paying the blacksmith with drachmas, some material, you can upgrade that weapon to your level. There's a lot of unique weapons in the game, so it's really about finding it, looting it. You can purchase some from shops. There's many different ways of gaining this loot.
So I was looking at what you were saying about they're sort of very granular. I was looking at a very complex, looking at weapon information, and there was everything. There was lots of numbers. Do you think that's something that people are really going to dive deep into?
That's what it's there for. I sincerely hope so. In the combat system, all the stats really matter. So speed, distance, the damage you do, rate of fire, these kind of things all really impact combat. So we want people to find, do they prefer to be doing less damage but much faster? Do they want to be close versus far? Do they want to do area effect versus more punctual damage but at higher numbers? It's really, there's a lot of info that kind of exposes the way the combat can work. And at that point, that information should just more be a guide for you to say, well, I prefer really fast weapons, so I'm going to stick to these categories. So yes, I sincerely hope people pay attention to the stats, because they do really matter. And it gets much more granular the deeper you get into the game.
Do you have any kind of starting tips for people when they're starting out, of what they might want to do or what they want to look for? Or are you...
What I would recommend, actually, because of the ability graph that we have, what I recommend to people is maybe at some point look at the graph early on, gauge what kind of abilities you want, gauge what kind of character you want to build, and it could be really any type of character. It could be a stealthy assassin, it could be a warrior, it could be a hybrid. But the idea is look at the abilities and maybe start crafting your character quite early on. You're not forced to, but it's a tip that I give people, because I've made some mistakes in the way I've built my characters, so I have to try to go back on them. But the game is very open. We allow for pretty much any type of combination of abilities you want. But I would recommend people take a look early in the game.
Thank you very much for your time on that.
My pleasure, absolutely.
So take notes, look at your graph, work things out, and then you might not regret things, like Ashraf once did. So that's Assassin Central for this episode. And remember, Assassins, nothing is true, everything is permitted.